Thank you so much, Monica and UNAA, for giving me this incredible opportunity to speak to you, Deputy Secretary General Mohammed. Welcome to the UN and Australia Sustainable Partnerships Forum, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Deputy Secretary General, you are at the centre of the negotiations to develop the SDGs. The world has obviously changed incredibly since 2015, particularly over the last 12 months. Are you confident the goals still provide a pathway to a more sustainable world?
Absolutely. Look, the SDGs with their universal scope, their interlinked nature, and a focus on leaving no one behind, which was the most important decision that we came to, has never been more essential than now. And they can serve as a roadmap to help guide the COVID-19 responses that not only provide immediate assistance, but take the opportunity of the response for a recovery that is not only better, but different. And the SDGs are encouraging lots of integrated investments and opportunities. The plans that we've put and co-created with countries have been critical for public goods. And so we've seen, again, where we might not have had the same chance pre-COVID, a lot of emphasis on social protection, dealing with our poverty goals, a lot of emphasis on the provision of services, making sure that the health systems and the education systems that were impacted by COVID, somehow that whole shift to connectivity and virtual, in many cases, has been leapfrogging. It's been not accessible to everyone, but we've seen a lot of progress there. And we've seen people have had the opportunity to have the immediate impacts of the economic shock, particularly in the informal sectors where we've seen a lot of young people and, of course, women in particular.
It's really wonderful to hear that despite the pandemic, the SDGs are obviously still progressing. So this forum has been designed to bring people together to learn about the benefits and opportunities of partnerships to progress the SDGs. How important do you believe partnerships are to delivering the 2030 agenda?
Well, partnerships, for one, it's I will always say, to deliver the SDGs 17 in number that they are, that the first 6 are the unfinished business of the MDGs. And our SDGs 7 to 15 is where the real investments need to be made to transform our economies and to become more inclusive. But here, 16 and 17, one is the governance and the institutions that this has to sit on for it to deliver scale. And 17 is our partnerships. And partnerships are critical. Today, this is beyond the capacities of any government to deliver on this agenda. It's huge. The challenges are very complex. And so those partnerships with civil society, with different groups in business, with academia, with science. I mean, there's a multiplicity of partnerships that are necessary now so that we get the depth and the breadth of the ambition of the SDGs. Science and technology, for instance, if we were looking at education, what are we going to be seeing as we reimagine education? It will be connecting people with technology, closing the digital divide, enabling skills. And so for that, it's not only government that can do it. It will be, partnerships in the private sector to have that done. So I think they're central to the ambition and, of course, to the breadth of what we have to cover in the SDGs happening by 2030.
On that note, do you think that the goals provide opportunities for new forms of partnerships too? For example, maybe with some less traditional types of partners such as startups and social enterprises?
I think they do, and they're all linked to many of the issues that we're facing today. For instance, we are embarking on the Food Systems Summit. It's an ecosystem of millions of people, that whole value chain from when you produce food till you get it into a family, a community. It passes through very many stages, and those require partnerships, some that are intricate, some that are, quite frankly, for us, if we can convene the different stakeholders around startups, for instance, can connect people to market very, very quickly. And so I think, yes, there is a huge opportunity for young people to be part of this. And essentially, many of the conversations that we've had recently around social entrepreneurship. And it's about the quality of life, the quality of what you need and not what you want. It really links to the circular economy. It begins to say, what does a social entrepreneur really want to contribute to this? But what are the expectations of a community? And I think that there's so much more interlinked today when you speak to young social entrepreneurs, the issues and the challenges in communities, societies, countries, cross-border, because again, technology is one way that we are being far more inclusive than we have been before.
And now actually moving on to young people, in planning tomorrow's forum session around partnering with young people, we embraced a comment that you made in Nations United, that the UN is bringing young people to the table now, but not just as a token. What advice would you give to organizations to ensure that they're allowing young people to shape decisions?
I mean, if you are employed by an organization, I think it's not just the quota that you give as we look for women to young people. I think it's beyond that. Being at the table is part of the experience and the life journey that all of you will have to grow. But every now and again, I think we need to open up space for leadership in organizations to young people, even if it is just to experience it. There's a lot of mentoring that goes on in organizations, but sometimes it's not to the point where, for instance, I would be chairing a meeting today on the important issue of financing for development and tackling debt relief. And I've got a number of experts around the table and heads of agencies. And to have to yield the chair to the youngest person around that table. I'm not yielding my job. I'm yielding the chair for that discussion to give a young person the experience of sitting at the head of the table and looking down left and right and thinking, oh, crumbs, but these people are, you know, these are my bosses, these are my colleagues. That's the person that leads this particular area. And I think we need to do more of that, be a little bit more creative, more welcoming of young people into discussions, so that you are not a token, that you are actually being heard, and challenge. I think sometimes young people suddenly become very polite in the midst of a lot of older people who've been there for a long time. And that's okay. We're not asking you to say something that will get you fired. But what we are saying is that have the courage with what you know, your lived experience, the skill set that you come with, to offer something on the table. Challenge that, you know, uneasy environment that's not quite sure what you're going to say if they give you the floor. Challenge it. If they don't give you the floor, you need to find a way to demand it, because you're at the table, not just as I would say as a token or a face at the table or to fill the numbers for young people, but actually to input and to shape the outcome of that meeting, that decision, that investment.
Absolutely. And, you know, we thank you for the role that you're playing in advocating for young people. You said recently that women's full political and economic participation and leadership are fundamental as we move forward from the pandemic. What advice would you give our audience today about how to ensure that gender equality can be achieved?
Whoa. Okay. Well, you know, we've been doing this since before Beijing, and we just took, you know, stock of Beijing as to where we were on gender equality, and we've launched an amazing campaign that young people are leading with generation equality. And the 6 clusters around which we need to mobilize women's movements, young and otherwise, to get behind issues that prevent it. And there are some, and let's start right from the family, the community and society. And then there are the more structural ones, which we have seen and we're trying to dismantle along the way. There are the norms and the standards that we need to put and have backed by law. And I think that it's not for want of knowing what we need to do. It's finding the way to do it, and not to do it as a cookie cutter. Every country is at a different level of development. And I think we have to acknowledge that, from those that are least developed to those that are, and I would say this with inverted commas, developed, because COVID has shown us that not everyone is as developed as you think, with the kind of exclusions and inequalities that we've seen around women and young people. So be conscious of the context that you're in. And if we want to get gender equality, first things first, this is about humanity. Half of humanity is female and has value to add. And no one's going to fly a plane on one wing. We are bringing value to the game. And there should be no tokenism around that conversation. We have different skill sets, different mindsets, different ways of coming at things. And I think in partnership, men and women, girls and boys, young people can do this together. But it is very different in every country. And I think that take a measure of where you are with the SDGs. And as communities, as young people and their movements begin to move that in whichever sphere is where the root cause is. Try to move away from the Band-Aids. They're too easy. It's really easy just to take up, speaking about a quota and push for a quota, and you're there for 20 years still trying to get a quota. You need to go behind the quota and why it is that there is pushback. And you'll find all the way back, it goes into the home. And so really it starts at the root. And this is such an enormous opportunity for young people, because this intergenerational transition that we are embarking upon, and that's what's great about COVID, beyond COVID, is just that. You have the chance to change the narrative on gender equality, because you're going to be doing it together with young people like yourselves. And I believe many young men who believe in gender equality and who can see the value and the benefits of it. Not everywhere the same, levels, but I think this is an opportunity. It's a huge one. Just don't inherit that from us. So it is so inspiring. And I really, truly believe that if we don't get it right with young people now, I don't know what we're going to do in our retirement.
No,
I
promise we're working on it hard here. We are pushing for it in the youth space.
Well, we're here to help you. I think it's, I would say more than help you, accompany, convene for it, and really just try to see the results that we would, like to co-create together. We have an awful lot to share. There are some things you don't have to have a learning curve for, because in different fora, I can share those things with you. Leaders like myself, women who in different walks of life should have that safe space discussion that can't go in a book, that can't happen on a webinar, to help you leapfrog some of those challenges that we had. You don't have to repeat them. Yeah. And I think it's a very different world that you have, one that you will, because, past generations have messed up, quite frankly, you're going to have to reshape. Climate action is one opportunity for you to do that. But climate action is not just about stop using coal. It's about changing the way our systems work, our lives are. And when you talked about equality, I was thinking, maybe it'll be shorter day weeks, because we will have to give more hours for everyone to work.
Absolutely.
So many are working 7 days a week, and so many are not working. And I think somehow we need to work towards our needs and not our wants.
Yeah. Massive restructuring of a lot of systems.
Really massive. But do it, social entrepreneurs are really very good at changing the narrative. Lots of behavioral science has to be, I think, brought to the fore. I think we've not understood mindsets. Yeah. We are not the same. Men are wired up differently from women. If you read that book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, you'll get it.
Yeah.
We are not wired. If we were, then we'd all be the same, right? We're not. And so there are weaknesses that men have that women can shore up, and things that we don't have that they can shore up. And I really think that there is a way to work at that constructively, so that when people see you at the table, they see you for who you are and what you're contributing, and not whether you're a man or a woman or an otherwise gender. It's really the human being that is at the table contributing. And we're a long way away from that. But there are lots of little things that we can do to change that narrative, to change the atmosphere, not to stand for it, to be courageous enough to say, well, I'm not going to stay at this table if we continue to speak in this manner about this issue, because it's not funny, it's a very serious issue. Or, I'm at many tables where they say they'll come back to me in 2 weeks' time with a solution. And I said, you know what 2 weeks is like in the life of a person that's hungry? I mean, you really need to see the urgency as you respond. So lots to do, and I'm excited for young people, because I wish I was there again, but I've had my, now I'm just trying to, my 6 kids remind me every day. And and I have the 3rd grandchild on the way, and I still feel as young as I did then. So
look, I mean, if I can leave on a note of hope, I think the young people I've spoken to so far have almost ticked all of those boxes you've just mentioned there. They're absolutely incredible from the most diverse spectrums, but they're all just so passionate about making that kind of change to these systems and seeing the complexities of these issues. It's not black and white to them. They understand the complexity of what we have to do, and they're really fronting up to the challenge. So I've been absolutely blown away with who I've consulted with so far. Deputy Secretary General Mohammed, it has been an absolute pleasure to speak with you today. On behalf of the UN Association of Australia and our audience, can I thank you again for your time and your perspectives. We hope that we can see you in Australia one day soon.